They shared the same ancestors. They shared the same ancient and sacred scriptures, but refused to share the same table. For centuries, Jews and Samaritans avoided each other, neighbors by geography but enemies by choice. If a Jew was traveling north, they would go around Samaria, adding days to their journey, just to avoid passing through. The hills of Samaria were fertile and beautiful, but to a Jew, they were a spiritual minefield. They chose the long, dangerous road over the shortcut through their rival's land, a silent declaration of rejection that spoke louder than words. But why? What fueled this ancient fire? To understand the hate, we must look at the fracture, a fracture that began long before the Roman occupation. It started with a division. After the glory of King Solomon's reign, Israel split into two kingdoms, one people, now two nations. The north formed its own identity, separate from Jerusalem. The unity of the tribes was shattered, and so was their shared faith. The north followed its own path, creating a legacy that the south would never accept. Politics turned into theology, and theology turned into prejudice. The brothers had become strangers. The brothers had become strangers. But the greatest blow was yet to come. A storm was rising in the east. Assyria was coming. In 722 BC, everything changed for the northern kingdom. The Assyrians conquered Israel, shattering their world and their history. They deported many Israelites and brought in foreign people from all over the empire. Samaria was repopulated with outsiders, creating a cultural crossroads. The heart of the north was no longer purely Israelite. The land was scarred, and so was the bloodline. The survivors were left to pick up the pieces of a broken identity. The old Israel was gone. A new complex Samaria was born. Time moved on, but the wound remained open. Those who remained intermarried with these foreigners. They still worshipped God, but their identity was now mixed. To the Jews in the south, this was unacceptable, a betrayal of the covenant. They saw the Samaritans as compromised, unclean, no longer one of us. The line was drawn. A brother had become a foreigner in his own land. The Samaritans held to their version of the law, but the Jews saw only heresy. The door to reconciliation was bolted shut for centuries. Two sides of the same coin, yet they could never face each other. The silence between them was louder than any battle cry. They feared the Lord, but also served their own gods, a half-hearted faith in Jewish eyes. Samaritans built their own place of worship on Mount Gerizim, claiming it was the true site, while Jews insisted that Jerusalem was the only place God chose to dwell. The conflict was no longer just about blood, it was about the very heart of worship. The religious chasm was now set in stone, reinforced by generations of teaching. The Samaritans were seen as a persistent insult to the holiness of the South. The heat of the rivalry only grew more intense with every passing century. The warmth of brotherhood had been replaced by the chill of religious war. They were ghosts to one another. To the Jews, Samaritans were not just different, they were rejected. They were considered worse than Gentiles, traitors to the covenant, unworthy of respect. To eat with a Samaritan was, to some, like eating the flesh of a pig. The walls of prejudice were higher than the mountains between them. That wasn't a suggestion, it was a social reality, a law of the heart. The hate was inherited, passed down from father to son like a sacred duty, a land divided by a history that no one wanted to forget. The tension was at a breaking point. Then something happened. A new voice began to speak in the wilderness. Then Jesus did something unexpected. He walked through Samaria. While others took the long detour, he took the direct route into the heart of the enemy's land. He sat by a well, tired and thirsty, waiting for the one everyone else avoided. And he spoke to a Samaritan woman, a double scandal in their world, a woman and a Samaritan. In a single conversation, he challenged centuries of division. He spoke of living water. He didn't see an enemy, he saw a person. He didn't see an unclean outcast, he saw a seeker. The barriers didn't just crack, they shattered under the weight of his grace. He became the bridge over the chasm that no one else dared to cross. The rejected were the first to hear the truth of who he really was. The journey through Samaria wasn't a shortcut for him, it was a mission. What history divided, grace confronted. The old hate was being rewritten. The line between enemies was no longer untouchable. A new kingdom was being revealed. A kingdom where there is no Jew or Samaritan, only brothers and sisters. The story of the Jew and the Samaritan is a mirror for our own lives. Will we choose the long detour of hate or the direct path of love? Who do you avoid? Maybe it's time to walk through your own Samaria. The bridge is open. Will you cross it?